Great. Can everybody see that? It says you can. All right. Play. There we go. So welcome. This is a presentation on eating to heal, the amazing power of whole plant foods and your power to heal your own body through how you eat. So we'll start with my story here. As you can see, maybe I don't know where your little box is, but might be blocking some of the pictures. I have struggled with health and weight and food issues the majority of my life. As a child, there were, of course, all kinds of stressful, difficult, events that happened, as in many people's lives there are. But it was kind of compounded by the food that I was eating. I was raised in a single mother household, and I saw my dad on the weekends, and there was a lot of toast and boiled hot dogs and ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese and things like that. And by the time that I was about 7 or 8 years old, I was starting to have some real health challenges. And the form that took at the time, it's always a combination of things, was that I experienced what's called early onset puberty. So I actually went through puberty in 3rd grade, which was extremely difficult in many ways. And what ended up happening was that I asked my mother to homeschool me. And so she did. And I stayed home from school. And it's, I recognize that as a big part of my life that has helped me become a person who's interested in alternative ways of learning and listening to my own knowledge, my own intuition about things, because I really got that time while I was being homeschooled to be in that place of deep understanding within myself and follow my own cues in life. At the same time, it was difficult, and there were times I felt lonely. But when I was 11 years old, and there's a picture of me right there at 11, my health problems had not gotten any better. They'd actually just continued to get worse. And my mother was really at a loss and trying to figure out what to do about it. Well, she eventually found a doctor who would run some tests, and they found that I had hypothyroidism. So my thyroid was underactive and was actually causing a change in my appearance. It may have been part of the early onset puberty issue that I experienced. And I was beyond just, physically how I was feeling. Emotionally, I was depressed. I was, very unhappy in my life at 11 years old. And I had already been through all kinds of health challenge things. And I think when I was 9, I had shingles, which is very uncommon for young children to have that. And yeah, I could tell you all kinds of digestive things I was going through that I wasn't telling anybody about. But at 11, we found out that there was something now to do about it. This doctor suggested that if it was indeed a hypothyroid issue and I might have something called Hashimoto's, that eliminating dairy and soy from my diet, specifically the proteins, casein, the protein in milk, not lactose, but the protein in milk, would help to rebalance my system. And so my mother encouraged me and told me, this is what we're doing now. And I was angry about it. I was really upset because it meant I couldn't eat cheese, I couldn't eat ice cream, I couldn't eat all these things that I had been eating that I wanted to still eat. What I didn't realize at the time, which I now recognize as probably just a huge, massive blessing in my life, is it meant that at that time in 1999, I could not eat almost any processed food. I would look now, as 11 years old, I'm reading the back of the label of the food container and I can't eat it because it has hydrolyzed soy protein, casein, or some kind of dairy product in it. Literally on a can of Campbell's soup, I couldn't eat most everything that was packaged, frozen food, things like this. And I was upset about that at 11, but now I see that that was really part of what helped me heal over the next year. So I got on some thyroid medication and I started eating no dairy, no soy, which meant more whole foods. Within a year, my body had changed and I looked much more like your kind of average adolescent girl. And I was feeling so much better in my body. And it actually made me feel confident enough eventually to return to public school, which I did. I returned to public school at 13 years old. So 2 years after this this diet change. And I didn't go to regular public school. It still was a public school, but it was a small charter school with about 80 kids in it. It was a very unusual school run by consensus. So you called all the teachers by their first names. Again, an alternative learning environment that really respected the children as, you know, the people there as the people who are teaching themselves, right? Like teachers are there to facilitate, and it's the kids who are learning. So I was allowed to do independent learning programs for myself and things like this. It was really lovely in some ways. But there were also still troubled things going on in my life. And I often struggled with feeling different from other people because of how I had to eat. And I resented that a lot. I wanted to be normal and eat pizza. I really did. And I would cause myself a lot of misery. I would get really sick for months at a time because I was just eating whatever my friends were eating, or I was just eating whatever my boyfriend was eating, or I was just, you know, going out to a restaurant knowing full well that it probably had something I was allergic to in it and just turning a blind eye. And so I, again, was struggling with a lot of weight and health issues, and also still depression, anxiety, different kinds of just emotional struggles that, yes, had to do with life circumstances, but again, were kind of compounded by the impact of the diet, the food that I was eating. So at 19, I ended up having another health crisis, another healing crisis, the biggest one of my life. And I won't get into all of that right now, but it like left me with this clear vision that I had to start taking care of myself. I had to, because my life depended on it. And this really, sorry, I'm trying to let someone in the room. This really impacted the way that I was eating. I decided that I am not going to eat things that I'm allergic to, right? I'm going to listen to that advice and do that for real this time. And my mother also suggested that I perhaps also cut out gluten. So now at 19, I have committed myself, in order to, in my view at this time, save my own life. I have committed to no gluten, no soy, no dairy. So again, no packaged foods, no restaurant foods, you know, and that was definitely a big challenge and a big commitment that I made, but I knew that I had to do it. At this time, I also discovered yoga through my father, and I began practicing yoga very, you could say, religiously, intensely, also in this way that I knew this was going to help me, and I needed to commit to it if my life was going to change. And it did so much. By 21, there's a picture of me over here. I was experimenting with raw food cuisine and veganism and different kinds of ways of eating, alternative ways of eating, cleanses, all that kind of stuff. I was still in this mindset of restricted eating, where it's like, I can't have this and I can't have that. And, you know, it would be especially hard, you know, on holidays or with other people. I always had to feel, again, this feeling of being different from others, and sometimes felt isolated or deprived. And it was no fun, but it was like what I felt like I had to do for my health, right? So, throughout the years, you know, I struggled with, again, weight and health issues. It didn't disappear, because what was actually going on, even though I was eating, you know, not eating things I was allergic to, was that I still had this mindset of kind of an extreme way of being with my body, an extreme relationship with food. And so throughout the next, you know, decade of my life, from 19 to 30, I was still struggling a lot with that. And I was struggling with pain in my body, which, you know, could be a different subject for a different time. But I lived with chronic tension and pain in my body for 7 years. And it also there was a relationship between the tension and pain in my body and the food choices that I was making, the choices I was making in my life. When you're in physical pain, you're looking for something to help you out of that, even for a minute. And there's comfort food, there's, you know, alcohol, there's all kinds of things. There's even relationships and ways of being with other people that I felt compelled, really, like I felt compelled to, you know, interact with and behave in a way that was going to get me some relief from the pain that I was in, from the tension that I was in. But along the way, there were these kind of little moments where I would, you know, get really clear about like taking care of myself, and I would get back into, a regiment with myself that felt really good. So along the way, I learned so much about food preparation, about, eating things, that taste delicious and fun and interesting, even though they're not what you normally, get at a restaurant or what you would normally eat from other people. I gained a lot of skills. When I returned to the United States, because a lot of the time in my 20s, I was traveling the world, which added another layer to challenge with, my food limitations and things like this. But I came back to the United States and I found myself back kind of in the American culture of eating, which when I was traveling globally, I was sort of separate anyway, right? I was different, I was a foreigner. So being different in my way of eating was just part of that. But now that I was back in the United States, I was back in the culture of my family, I found myself drawn into, again, kind of extreme ways of eating, because that was my philosophy at the time, and different ways of thinking about food that I had not considered yet. And so during that time, I actually started regularly eating quite a lot of meat again. And I I had a baby, I had a child and got married, and a lot of shifting and change happened. And I did in 2020 decide to do the, trendy fad diet, the ketogenic diet, which is fairly extreme. You're cutting out huge, portions of different kinds of foods, and you're eating a lot of fat and protein. And I did that, and I lost 30 pounds that I had gained over my pregnancy. But if you can see this picture down here, I lost 30 pounds on keto, also exercising, over exercising, running, like 4 times a week, while, counting exactly how much of everything that I was eating all the time to make sure I wasn't eating too many carbs, da, 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 da. It was a 6-month period that I lost 30 pounds, but ask my husband, I was miserable. I was not happy on a bunch of different levels. And I can tell you that my gut was not happy either. And so after that, I realized that like this wasn't really working for me, and I needed to reinvestigate my food, because it had, I realized it had been such a big part of my life was eating differently, and maybe I was meant to eat differently. And so like, what did that mean? Did that mean all the things that I had already been doing, all these extreme ways of eating? And a friend introduced me to a couple of books. And at first I went into it kind of with my extreme mindset of like, oh, I'm going to do a cleanse. I'm going to do like this 6-month thing. But what I ended up realizing is that that wasn't what I really needed. What I really needed was to learn about how this stuff works, to learn about how my body works, and then make choices moment to moment that actually feel authentic and in line with what's really important to me. Okay. So that brings me to my food philosophy, right? So I had this realization that the way that I had been doing things, even though sometimes it worked, wasn't really working overall. I seemed to be going through these cycles. And so this gets me to kind of what my food philosophy is now. Diets and restricted eating don't work and are generally no fun. So psychologically, we want what we can't have. When I couldn't have ice cream, or when I couldn't have this or that, and I couldn't, and I committed to it at one point, I committed to not having those things for like 10 years of my life. It made those things even more alluring. And when I came back to the United States, I actually found that my allergies, the reactions that I used to have to certain foods, had disappeared, which is very common if you stay away from certain foods. Your gut, your system kind of resets for some people, and they don't have allergies anymore. Well, I ended up, testing that limit, and I ate lots of ice cream, and I ate lots of all these things that I wasn't allowed to have. And they were that much more appealing because I had lived so long not letting myself have them, right? So that's one reason that diets and restricted eating don't work, is that we always want what we can't have. And when we tell ourselves you can't have that, it makes that so much more appealing, right? We also end up getting into this quick fix mindset rather than thinking about a lifestyle and the way that we're eating in the bigger picture of our lives. And so you think of, any kind of diet is sort of a quick fix. It's like, oh, eat this way for a little while so that you can get this result, and then go back to whatever the status quo was before for you. And so it's a mindset thing as well that, is part of what doesn't really work about it when we're talking about your long-term health. Your weight and your mood will fluctuate more wildly when you're having, when you're dieting and when you're eating in this restricted way, for various reasons. But definitely, everybody's familiar with this idea of yo-yo dieting, or again, eating in some extreme way for a short period of time, losing the weight or getting the effect that you want, and then having it all come back, gaining it all back, right? And then the roller coaster of emotion that comes along with that. We miss out on necessary nutrients when we are restricting certain food groups from our diet. So if you are on a super low carb diet, you're cutting out like almost all grains. You may be cutting out almost all beans. You may be cutting out almost all fruit, which is what I did on the ketogenic diet. And that actually causes you to miss out on certain nutrients that your body may really, really need, your brain may really, really need to function well. So maybe those things, again, could work for a short period of time, but I don't believe in my experience that they seem to work for people long-term. Again, going back to the feelings of what it's like to be on a restricted diet, to tell yourself, I can't have that. You feel deprived, isolated. You might feel some shame about eating, because when you do eat that thing that you want, that you couldn't have, now you feel bad about yourself for doing that. You feel like you did something wrong and you're a bad person, right? And beyond, the emotional stuff, there's also just, again, the science behind it, which is that our gut, our microflora, needs variety and it needs consistency. It needs both those things. And so if you're jumping around from, diet to diet, way of eating to way of eating, that's not like building a consistent population of certain kinds of bacteria in your gut. And we're going to talk about that. That's part of what I'm going to share with you today. And so you need that consistency. You need that regular intake of fiber, truly, in your microflora, in your gut, to build a system within your body that supports your life. So when we're eating in all these extreme restricted ways, we're missing out on that piece too. We're not allowing our gut to stabilize. Okay. So what do we do instead? Eat with knowledge. Knowledge is power and application is key. Okay. So getting informed, and then you can make informed choices about what you eat. Experiment by noticing how you feel. So instead of, just telling yourself, oh, you can't eat that, eat it if you want to eat it, and then notice the effect that it has on you. And there's a few different ways to measure. There's, noticing the effects, like, a couple hours or even 20 minutes after eating. Has it shifted your mood? Has it shifted the way that you feel in your body? Maybe you feel how do you feel the next morning? David was doing some of this experimentation by taking his blood pressure after eating certain foods and, or certain times of day, and noticing a trend, noticing an effect that he was having on his body by what he was eating. So there's a lot of different ways, but that experimentation is so important, because your individual body, your individual gut is only under your control and your experience. And you're the only one who's going to know what the effect is for you of eating what you eat. So listening to your body is a huge piece of this. And you get signals all the time. Moment to moment, there are signals in your body. There are signals in your experience that are trying to get your attention, that are telling you, hey, this would be a good thing to do, or no, this doesn't. But we don't take time to listen to that. And all of this eating with knowledge, this food philosophy that I'm offering you today, this is really the core of what we focus on in my 6-month program, is building in you not only some knowledge and education about how the human body works, but then also how can you apply that to yourself? How can you apply this knowledge to yourself? And how can you build that relationship to your body, that sensory awareness in your body, that you're going to be able to listen when you're getting signals, from inside, right? The other thing here in my food philosophy, or what to do, is be willing to be different. Because when you're willing to eat differently, you open up the possibility that you will live to be 100, right? If you look at what the average lifespan is of whatever country that you're in, or you look at the average health of the people around you, you don't want to be average. No, we want to live to be 100. We want to live well at 100, right? Not as a vegetable, unless, you're a beautiful vegetable growing out of the ground, but no, seriously, you want to live in a way that is is life affirming and joyful, and that you can really enjoy everything that there is to experience in your life. And to do that means you may have to eat differently than the status quo, than the average person in your country. Okay. So focus instead of on what you can't have, right? Or what maybe it's not good for you. Maybe that's actually the reason you're telling yourself you can't have it, right? Is instead of doing that and shaming yourself about what you can't eat or whatnot, be focusing instead on what foods will help you to heal, what foods will help you to live in this way where you're enjoying your life and you're living a long and beautiful experience in your body. So focus on what you can eat that's going to support that in you. That's what I continue to invite people to do. That's what's been so helpful in me and all this process, is focusing on the things that help me heal. Lifestyle versus, again, the diet, the quick fix, the cleanse. Lifestyle is for the long haul. So you don't have to feel this sense of having to make all of these changes overnight, right away. It's for the rest of your life. So take it easy and be patient and do it your way. That means that even as you learn all of this information and you're really inspired to make shifts and changes about how you eat, like, it takes time. And, changing your habits and your behaviors doesn't happen overnight. It's something that you have to be willing to go through in the process, in the way that feels correct to you, and just keep realigning with that. Every time that we move off center, it's always just how we know where center is. We know how to come back by moving off center, right? So getting into some of this knowledge and this is just one little piece of what we go into in my 6-month program with my clients, because this is stuff I feel like everybody should know about how their body works and be able to apply to their life. We're going to talk a little bit about gut health. So your gut health and the health of your microbiome, if you've heard this term before, it's actually just your health in so many ways. There are other systems in your body, of course, but this really is a direct reflector of your overall health, is whether you have a balanced, diverse, strong, healthy microbiome, okay? You, as a human being or as a person, are really more of a we. There's a vast universe of colonies of microbes in your gut that evolve with food over millions of years. And we are just starting to, in the last 10 years, just kind of dig into the surface of this huge mountain of knowledge that exists out there. We're, as the scientists, are just starting to get clear on a few things. And it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting work. So this is balanced gut, this balanced, healthy gut, especially in our day and age, is quite hard to find. As they've studied people all over the world, they find them, but they're often like deep in the Amazon rainforest or something like this. Human beings who really have these super strong, healthy, diverse microbiomes, right? Because there's so much in our food that doesn't provide what we need, and instead has other kinds of things in it that don't help us, right? So we're going to talk today about what does help us. And that is fiber. Okay. And when I say fiber, I'm not necessarily talking about Metamucil, although it does fall under the umbrella. Fiber, by definition, comes from plants. Okay. There's no fiber in dairy. There's no fiber in animal products. Fiber comes from plants. 97% of US citizens don't get the recommended daily minimum amount of fiber in their diets. It's something like 35 grams of, that the health experts in the United States have determined is the minimum amount, ideal amount, not ideal, minimum. It's a minimum amount, 35 grams. And 97% of people in the United States don't eat that. So that can help explain why a healthy, balanced gut is hard to find. Plant fibers are what build a healthy gut. Okay. So if you can think about eating, and I like this analogy, eating as a workout. So every time that you eat, you're actually training your gut. You're training your gut to be healthy and balanced, or you're training your gut to be out of balance and creating inflammation and all kinds of other disease and challenges in your body. You are training your gut every day that you eat, because again, it's not something that changes overnight. It's small shifts every meal, every day that you eat, slowly over time, build certain colonies of bacteria, and other ones that are not getting fed die out. So if you're not eating plant fibers, all of these really beneficial microbes in your gut that evolved over millions of years with food, they're not getting fed. They're not getting fed, and other kinds of funguses and bacteria are getting fed by things like a lot of processed food doesn't have any fiber. It has minimal, tiny amount of fiber, but mostly like sugar or processed grains, right? So that's the microbes that people are feeding, and they're not feeding the ones that actually help you, help your brain function, help your immune system, help build what we call a balanced microbiome, okay? So when you have a low fiber intake, you have a low population of bacteria to break that down. So what that can mean for many people is that they don't digest fiber very well, especially of certain vegetables or certain fruits. Maybe you've heard of people who are like, oh, I can't eat broccoli, or I can't eat cabbage, or maybe you have some experience, you're like, oh, I love this, but when I eat a lot of it, you know, I get gas or I feel uncomfortable. Well, the reason is because you don't eat those things very regularly. Maybe you don't eat beans very often. And so then when you do, you know, you don't have the population to break it down, you have a digestive challenge with it, okay? So when you slowly over time, increase your fiber intake, then you can actually have success with this, where you build the microbes in your gut to break down what you're eating, right? So if you sat down and were like, oh, I heard fiber is good, I'm going to eat a giant salad and a huge bowl of black bean soup, and then you find yourself, you know, having gut problems, it's because you kind of went too far too fast, just like a workout. Just like if you went to the gym and you hadn't been working out, would you do 350 pounds on the bench press right away? You'd end up sore and not feeling well, right? So looking at eating as a workout has been really fun for me, thinking about how I'm training my gut every day, right? So increasing your vegetable and plant fiber intake is going to increase the balance and the health of your microbiome, but it has to be done gradually over time, okay? But one other thing I'm going to touch on here, because it's very important, especially when we're thinking about yourself as a we, and that sometimes the things that we're experiencing in our bodies, we might think that they're us, or think that they're, you know, I might think it's me, but it might not really be me. So I don't know if you have heard of Candida. Some people have. It is a microbe of fungus actually that exists in our gut, and at small levels it has a purpose. It's not like we want to eliminate it from our lives completely, but it feeds on sugar. And when there's an overabundance of sugar, especially sugar separate from fiber, from processed sugar or alcohol or things like this, the Candida has an overgrowth, and there's a lot of it now in your system. So think about it. If there's millions of microbes in your body that want to get fed, what are they going to ask you to eat if what they eat is sugar? They're going to ask you to eat sugar. They're going to ask you to eat a lot of sugar so that they can proliferate, so that they can keep their population growing. And oftentimes when we cut out sugar, or when we try to stop eating sugar, it feels, you can feel really bad. And part of that is because of the Candida die-off, because now this whole population in your gut is not getting fed. It's not happy about it. As you can imagine, you would not be very happy if you were not being fed and all your relatives and everybody was dying off. So this idea that it's me, that I just have a sweet tooth, I like, you know, to eat lots of sugar, I like this, I like that. Is it really me? Or is it a population of microbes that I've been feeding that are now asking to continue to be fed? So just something to consider as you're thinking about, you know, you as this fixed identity. It's much more complex than that, is what I'm offering here. So to sum up, restricted dieting and eating like in an extreme way doesn't work. It's in terms of your long-term health, You have to examine things slowly over time and shift gradually with the knowledge that how you're moving towards eating, what you're working towards is going to support your life long term, not just, you know, to lose 10 pounds because there's a wedding in June or whatever stuff that we do sometimes to think, oh, you know, just a quick fix, right? It's got to be a long-term, big picture change in order to really impact your life in a useful way. So when you start to combine your knowledge and your application of knowledge into the way that you're eating, you can actually reverse your health problems. Many health problems, common health issues can be reversed by building up your microbiome, by paying attention to what you're eating in a compassionate and knowledgeable way. You can reverse your health problems. When you have a healthy, balanced microbiome, you can be protected from disease because now your immune system is really working to protect you from things that are coming in. It's fighting them off, right? It's much easier to maintain an ideal weight because whole plant foods have the perfect proportion of nutrients that our body needs and nothing extra. So we're not accumulating extra kind of, you know, empty calories, as they say. The calories that you're eating are truly nourishing and helpful to your body. And in my experience, you know, changing my diet and eating a higher volume of fruits and vegetables, I lost 12 pounds without even trying. It was taking me like months on keto to do that while running all the time. And with this shift, it was like the fitness that I was experiencing felt effortless. It didn't feel like I had to run my buns off to lose a couple of pounds. I could just eat and my body started rebalancing and my systems started working better together and it suddenly became easy. You are going to live longer, okay? Higher volume of plant fibers, fruits, vegetables, and other plant foods are associated with a longer lifespan overall, anywhere you look in the world. You're going to feel more confident because now you have a bunch of understanding of how your body works, and you have a lot of compassion for the process, for the time that it really takes to make changes. And that it's not just you. It's like this is kind of a theme, an issue for everybody in the world, is that, you know, how we eat does not support health and balance in our bodies for the most part. So there's a sense of confidence that you're going to feel about moving out into the world, being a little different, eating in a way that, you know, has some flexibility, but also has a lot of awareness about how it really works and what's really important. You're going to save money because when you start making things for yourself, when you start, you know, handling your food and having a relationship with your food, it's actually less expensive than buying a bunch of processed foods. And it's actually less expensive than going out to restaurants. So over time, you save money not only on your food choices, but also on your health in general, because it's much, much easier and cheaper to prevent an illness than it is to deal with one that is really full blown and active in your body, okay? And you're gonna be able to lead others through your radiance, through the health in your body that you're experiencing and that you're creating and building over time. Other people in your life are going to notice, your friends, your family, people who come in contact with you, and they're going to wonder, what are they doing that's so different? What are they doing that's so interesting? And you're going to be able to impact other people through your level of confidence and appreciation and health that you're experiencing in your body. So this is really the big piece of what I'm offering here is the concept of radiant health, that we can create health within ourselves that radiates out and impacts others through our own well-being, through our own healing. And this is what I bring together with Somatic education, with which this movement practice, because both of these things have been so major for me in my healing process. And I've seen them really make a huge difference for my clients as well. So thank you so much. This has been my presentation on the healing power of plant foods, on my life's journey that has brought me here to give you this presentation today. We'll have about 5 minutes if you guys have any responses or questions before we switch gears to the next part. So anybody want to say something, you can raise your hand or just unmute.
It was great. I just wanted to say thank you. So you currently are a vegan, vegetarian, sort of like in that, right? Has that been part of your shift, or are you completely plant-based? I guess is my question. How has that worked for you?
I'm like 99% vegan most of the time, but I don't make really rules or restrict myself about it. Like if I'm at like a party or a barbecue or somebody's house, and there's like, I don't know, some mashed potatoes or whatever, and it's probably got some butter in it, I'm not going to be like trying to stay away from it. But I know that it's not really how I normally eat. It's not really what I want to be putting my body over time. So that's just a personal choice that I make, and I'm flexible about it. I understand that there may be some point in my life where maybe I do feel like I want to eat meat or I want to eat eggs. I'm open to that possibility. It's happened before. But where I'm at right now is that doesn't really resonate with me. That doesn't really feel like what I want to do. So where I come from is really, yeah, more plant-based at this time for myself. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I wanted to say something because I've been attempting to eat this diet myself for the past, well, it's been 10 months, I guess, right, since the end of May, really. And it's a predominance of fruits and vegetables, so, you know, I have a little extra salt sometimes, and it's minor. Or I might have, I had some ramen last week, and I'm like, oh, ramen, the white noodles, and but I didn't use the whole spice packet. But it is much, much, much smaller portion of what I'm eating, because I'm eating huge salads every day, and and a stew or a soup with lots of vegetables, a big smoothie every day. It's predominantly more fruits and vegetables than that other stuff. I have pretty much eliminated the animal products, though, and that's been. I miss the dairy. I miss the little cream cheese or dip or something like that. But
Yeah, I mean, you've been finding some vegan alternatives that you've enjoyed. And I think for you, the bigger challenge was really looking at the impact on your heart, and that was a motivator, right? So, it's different for every person. Some people are going to have certain health challenges that they maybe want to focus on eating differently because it's going to support their health in a specific way. And then somebody else doesn't have that same exact challenge. And so it's going to be a little different for each person.
right, and I was born with a heart murmur, so I actually, you know, don't have a fully kind of normally functioning heart, and I have experienced angina, so I know the physical challenge that. I mean, it's not an actual heart attack, but it was pretty painful. I've experienced it more than a couple of times, and I've never been diagnosed with heart disease. So whatever the standard is in the medical field, um, I'm a healthy man, but the angina was no fun. And so there's that kind of motivation in me to be really careful about the salt and the other oils that help build cholesterol in my blood system. So
Thank you for sharing that, Dad. Anybody else have some reactions or maybe experience they want to share?
Well, I personally, I think I mentioned to you the other day, Amy, that I had really big problems with Candida. And I remember, well, I went to a integral Chinese medicine doctor, and it helped me a lot to understand what was not working for my body, but at the same time, that mindset of restrictions and the stress that has been causing me, that I'm still kind of like recovering from that kind of trauma, because
Mm-hmm.
in the end it becomes like a trauma because it affects you socially, and you're always stressed, like I cannot eat this, and what am I gonna eat? And I realized that I had to let go of that mindset, and even if sometimes I'm not eating exactly what I know that is good for my body, I think it's better to just eat it and forget about the stress rather than holding onto that anxiety, because that releases also toxins in the body, and that's what I learned. So that resonated a lot. Everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It really is a trauma, of that feeling of, I can't eat this, right? And then the stress about what to eat. And what was really been encouraging for me is you always have the next meal, you always have tomorrow, whatever you ate now, like, I went to a restaurant like a couple of weeks ago, and while I was eating the food, it was like, oh, this is yummy, but I can tell it's a lot more sodium than I'm used to eating, and I could feel that within 30 minutes of the meal. And then the next day I still felt that, and I was like, okay, I don't have to panic, I don't have to be really upset about this, I don't have to never do that again, I just have to drink more water, eat some bananas, eat some fiber, eat some foods I know are going to help me, and then it'll work out, it'll balance out. I don't have to, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be afraid. I have control over this. I got this. Yeah. Thank you, Marina. Michelle.
And another thing that can be effective is I found reframing from I can't have this to look at all the things I can have, or I'm eating now for the pleasure of my long life, for the pleasure of my pain-freeness. And so there's it's just like positive affirmations that we have to do to get out of psychological negativity or whatever. And I'm working on this with food and with my mindset, the positive reframing.
Yes.
From I can't have to I can have, and this is life affirming. And that's just another practice that I'm working on that is going to come along with the change in the food eating, so that at some point in the future, 2 years, 5 years from now, I'm not going to be going, oh, I can't have ice cream, or I can't have milk, or I can't have, barbecue ribs. I'm going to go, I'm eating this amazing food and it's bringing me glorious radiance.
Oh, yes, exactly. That's what I've been.
Yeah, that shift in mindset.
And that is completely the message here, is that when you start eating foods that support your life, that support your brain, that support your well-being, then you feel that radiance, you feel that pleasure of the simple things in life, you feel that joy. And that's also the piece that, the movement practice that we're about to do is going to bring in even more of that feeling of ease and joy in your experience of your body as a baseline. And when you're feeling that experience of joy and pleasure being in your body, things that are fun but destructive, if you know what I mean, they're less appealing, right? Oh, sugar is your main struggle. Yeah, but you have to tell yourself and remind yourself and affirm, yes, sugar is a big one. Yeah. And it's different for everybody too. For some people it's oil, salt, or just in comfort foods, different processed foods that you used to eat when you were a kid and that you have some memory around. Like it's so complex, right? There you go. Cool. Any other responses or reactions anyone else want to share before we switch gears?
I wanted to say one other thing, Amy. I'm you're about to teach a movement class, and I'm going to say I think I taught you the first movement class that you did way back. I must have been 10, 12 years ago, and so I'm actually really looking forward to you teaching, and I'll lay down on the floor and get to experience you teaching me. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Beautiful. Well, okay, so we're going to get to the somatic movement portion, and there's a few people here who haven't done this before. So I want to give just a little bit of information about how you can get the most out of this today. You're going to lie down on the floor, and you want to be sure that you're warm enough. So you could grab a blanket, have a couple of pillows nearby to support your head if we do some side lying movements, some lying on the floor, lying on your side. You want to have some pillows for supporting your head. The three big things in somatics, in order for it to be effective for your body, in order for you to get the result, one, you must move slowly. And this is challenging in the beginning because we don't usually move slowly in most things that we do. But it's key. It's so important because this is how we get to your motor cortex, a certain part of your brain that can actually change what's going on in your musculature. Okay, so you must move slow. Number 2 is, as much as possible, move without